Hi, I'm Sheila, the Grateful Goddess, and with me today is artist Chandika. And I just met Chandika last week, and I was so impressed with her beauty and grace and extreme talent. She's an artist and a property manager for a very sweet place, and so I wanted to introduce you to her.
And I took the job as the rental manager of Las Lomas, which is what this beautiful ranch is called. It's called El Rancho de Las Lomas. And I took the job basically because I moved from the front house, which was an individual house, to this house, which is a duplex. And in order to make sure I always had a quiet neighbor, I agreed to take the job as the rental manager. Well, it turned out that I grew into this job because I found out I had a flair for picking the right home for the right person. And since there are 30 homes in this property, 30 casitas on this property, I have to keep 30 casitas pretty much full.
And I loved the idea that it's been like this lineage of women, strong women who have been, so tell us that part again.
I'll tell you from the beginning. The present owner, her grandmother built it in 1935 as a dude ranch. And at that time there was only Old Tucson and Las Lomas. So consequently most of the actors who were making movies in Old Tucson came here and stayed here.
Yes, tell some of the people.
Clark Gable had his honeymoon here. Timothy O'Leary stayed here. Linda Ronstadt, she lived here for a while. She had a recording studio here. So a lot of famous people have stayed here. It's got quite a reputation.
And how long have you been here?
And I've been here 22 years.
Wow.
And I took the job as the caretaker, rental manager 14 years ago. And I've since taken on two of the other jobs, which is the bookkeeper and the maintenance manager's job. And the maintenance manager has to organize to make sure that the houses are kept maintained and to hire people to do the work. So I took all three jobs. To my surprise, I was able to do all three jobs, but apparently I'm doing okay.
So not only all three jobs, but then also your true passion.
And then my true passion, of course, is the art. And this is what I've supported myself with for many, many years now. And that began at age 2 when I drew everybody that came to my house. I did rough sketches of everyone as a child. And I became a professional artist when I was in my 30s. I was in my 30s, and it was with a good push from my first husband, who was kind of recognized my talent and pushed me to it.
Lovely.
Because I was very shy back then, and I would never have become a professional artist if it hadn't been for him.
Part of your inspiration is really the great outdoors.
Oh,
right?
yes, I sleep out most of the time. I have an outdoor bedroom, and the only time I don't sleep out is when it rains or when it gets below 40. I'm online, and also I do shows here and there. Whenever I see an opportunity, I jump into it. Mm-hmm. And definitely an opportunist. And I've traveled a great deal. I spent most of my life in a motorhome traveling. And my earlier years here in Arizona were on the Papago, the Tohono O'odham Reservation. I lived there for 8 years. And I spent the summers traveling up to the northwest to sell my art. And I had galleries all the way up the coast that handled my art. And I would do shows, and I had my son was growing up at that time. He was 5 when I moved into the reservation. And he was able to help me set up the art shows. So back then it was a lifestyle, where in the winters I would live on the reservation, and he would go to school. And in the summers I would go up north, usually as far as Canada, but then I started going to Alaska. That was really an adventure.
Yes, it sounds like it.
That was the most exciting part of it, was going to Alaska. I really love Alaska.
And what was your life like in Alaska?
Oh, it was fantastic. I made so much money. It was the only time in my life I made a lot of money, because I do, as you can see, I do Alaska art here. And I had quite a few images, Alaska images. And usually prints. I had a lot of originals, but I also made small and large prints. And when I would spend the summers in Alaska, I would wholesale all the way up from Vancouver and then do art shows in Alaska. all summer and wholesale to all the gift shops, but I would also do art shows as well. So it was very lucrative, and it was a fun trip.
So I'm curious, in doing art shows, did that break you out of your shyness?
Yes.
Because I would think...
Well, after I left my first husband, I pretty much had to break out of my shyness because I was on my own raising my son. And I hid behind my first husband, of course, for many years because he was very bold, and he had no problem selling my work, and all of a sudden I was faced to selling my work. And I remember the first time it was very nerve-wracking because I was in Laguna Beach at the Sawdust Festival. That's where I set up every summer. And there were people looking at my work, and I knew I had to talk to them. And it took me about 10 minutes to finally get the courage to walk up to them and say, "I'm the artist." And then I stopped, and I couldn't say anymore. It was so funny because they were waiting, for a sales pitch, and I couldn't give it to them. But over the years, I've developed a much better. I've managed to overcome my shyness on the whole. I'm shy, but not. When you get to be 84, you pretty much know who you are.
Yeah.
And the shyness has slowly dropped away.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's so great about being 84, by the way. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's actually very exciting.
One of my Goddess of the Months, I was talking to this woman, and she was going to be turning 50, and I already was, and beyond, and I said, "Oh, I love the 50s," and she's like, "What in the world do you love about the 50s?" And I said, I feel like I don't spend my time doing things that I have to do or should do, or it just drops away, and there's this freedom to do what you want to do and be who you want to be. And so when I met Chandika, we just met at a women's luncheon this last week, and that's what I heard come out of her lips to another woman is how freeing being in your 80s is, because you are truly being who
Yourself.
you are.
You're truly being who you are, yes.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Yes.
So what did you have to do? I mean, because I think overcoming shyness and that playing small is something that so many people have to overcome.
Oh, yes.
Was there anything in particular that you did to overcome the playing small?
I think so. I did a lot of self-help classes because I grew up in Europe. I grew up in England during the war, and I had a lot of fear. I grew up with a lot of fear. I had a very strict Romanian half gypsy father who was not what you call a very warm person, and so I never really felt much love coming from him. So I had to overcome all of that, all of my childhood trauma, being a wartime child, being full of fear, being fearful of my own dad, and being the only one in my family that actually ended up confronting him. I mean, he scared the hell out of my mother and my brother. And he scared the heck out of me too, but I was the only one that could just bypass my fear, just overcome my fear and just go for it and confront him. And I did several times, and I guess that's how I am. I don't like confrontations, but I am the type of person that won't push anything under the rug, and I'm willing to take a chance and do it. Even if it makes me nervous. And then once I've done it, I feel so exhilarated.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Thank God I did it. So freeing.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent tip. It's when you need to do something, do the self help in terms of when you love yourself enough to know that your voice matters.
Exactly.
Then you can actually be more of service. And I
That's
think
right.
the other thing that has really helped me, because I had the same issue in not wanting to be in a business where I needed to sell my own value. You have to learn your value.
I have had to learn it through the art business. Oh my God, because I had a really hard time selling my own art.
Yeah.
I can sell other people's things. If I really like something, I can go all the way and I can be enthusiastic, like Las Lomas here. I'm very enthusiastic about this place because it's magical. I'm living in a magical place, and I can talk all day about it. And I can talk all day about India because I went to India 3 times and I'm totally in love with it.
Yeah.
And I lived on the Tohono O'odham reservation here for 8 years, and I can talk about the Native Americans because I love them.
Yeah.
But when I start to talk about my own art, it's a little different. And so I can talk enthusiastically about what inspires me to paint. But as far as trying to get people to buy it, I just let the art sell itself.
Exactly.
That's
and I
how
don't
I
think
sell my
it's
art.
I don't think it's
try to sell
ever
my
yeah,
art.
I don't think it's ever trying to get somebody to buy it.
Yes.
It's being who you are and saying this is what I have to offer, and those people who are attracted and know what they will get from it. So
Exactly.
for me it was recognizing how much people benefit from working with me. So they
Right.
benefit from your art.
That's
Just
right.
like I loved so the speaker was a singer-songwriter who was fabulous.
Oh, she was fabulous, yes.
But it was the fact that she had to do the work to value her own work, and
That's
that
right.
by giving one of her songs to just like sharing it with a woman, the woman was healed through hearing the song because she was going through a difficult breakup. And in that process, she ended up being gifted like 7
Right.
years of
Right.
free travel,
That was an
first
amazing
class.
gift.
It's an amazing gift, but again,
And it was
it's-
also an amazing gift she had given.
exactly.
Right.
And that's
Yes.
the equal exchange. You
equal
have to
exchange.
recognize the worth and value of
Right.
of her song and the
Right.
healing powers that it had for that particular
You know,
thing.
talking about
Yeah.
that incident reminds me of why you asked me the question of when did I realize my worth. I
Yes.
think it came at DeGrazia. I get shows at Ted DeGrazia's gallery every 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time I was having a show and I had this rather tall painting of a little girl giggling. She was a Seri Indian and she was standing there and she looked like this and she was just giggling her little head off. And you
Yeah.
could just tell you could feel her giggle.
Yeah.
And this beautiful woman walked in. She was wearing a hat and she had no hair. And she was just very young and very gorgeous. And she walked in, she walked straight to that picture and she said, "Oh my God, that picture could heal me." Because she had cancer.
See?
She walked in, she didn't have a lot of money. It was an original. I was asking a lot for it. I was asking several $1,000s for it. And I said to her, "Look, you walk around and when you come back, you tell me what you can afford.
Yes.
And you will have that painting." She said she would put it when she came back, she offered me a certain amount and I gave it to her. And she said she was going to put it at the bottom of her bed so every morning when she woke up, she could see that little girl giggling.
Oh,
And
lovely.
that's when I realized that my work was helping people.
Exactly.
That was the first time I got that real big hit that, oh my God, this is really amazing what's coming out of my fingers, because a lot of times I'm not painting from the head, I'm painting from the heart, and it's just coming out of me. And I was so impressed with that woman.
And I think we undervalue our own talents because they're so natural for us.
Right.
And so it is
Painting
important.
people comes very naturally to me. I've been drawing people since I was 2, and so it's very natural for me
Yeah.
to paint people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
dear.
Thank